Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar, which is on an overview of SeeTec's Cayuga VMS. My name is Richard Bell and I'll be your presenter for today. For those who haven't joined us before for a webinar, I'll run through some of the main points to remember. Firstly, you'll see that you are muted. Please remain muted during the course of the webinar. If you have any questions during the time the webinar is on, please type them here and I'll click send, and I'll attempt to answer these if time permits. If not, I'll answer them with an email after the webinar. If there are any downloads that are available during the webinar, you can download them here down on the bottom right hand side. The list of the documents in PDF format will be there. Anyway, SeeTec is a bit of a background of the company and its history. It was founded in 1997, so they've been around for more than 20 years. Their verticals covered a vast space from banking, logistics, correctional facilities, industrial, retail, and transportation. In 2015, they merged with OnSSI and form a partnership where now the OnSSI's engine is based on the SeeTec platform, and that's given them development and opportunities in the USA and vice versa. The most important and probably a stat that they're very proud of is that they've got more than 100,000 installations worldwide. So there's a lot of experience, that they've varied, with systems from small to extremely large, and we'll cover some of those, where they've actually gone in their time they've been going. SeeTec have a broad base. The company is based in Brussels in Germany, and there's a number of company branches located around the world. And together with this, there's an extensive distributor network in the various countries, as well as we represent them here in Australia. Now, there's two main core software technologies that they have. There's the SeeTec Cayuga VMS and the BVI, the Business Video Intelligence, and that's closely related. They work hand in hand with each other. The course of today is just going to cover on the VMS side, and there will be an upcoming presentation on the BVI and how that works with the VMS and see the benefits of that particular package and how it does differentiate itself. The main VMS of what we've got in the system, its main basis is for the CCTV. It has additional interfaces that you can bolt on. There's the SDK, software development kits, the software gateway services, and then, the SeeTec alarm interface. Together with this, associated video analytics, LPR, access control, intruder linking of their systems and via HLIs, and the visualization access via maps and floor plans, and how they all work as one screen to drive this particular product. Just briefly, the BVI side of things is an interaction with ERP and warehouse and logistic type systems, whether that may be a SAP interface, XML flat file connection, and how that works with tracking of products, data, could be pallets or particular items in warehousing, and it links with the video camera and to produce an ease of access of where products may have been misplaced, wrongly delivered, and it's accountability of the product, from the end user all the way back to the supplier. But that'll be in an upcoming one in the new year. Now, SeeTec comes in a number of versions, but our aim is to keep it as simple as possible. The way that we probably like to think of it is probably small, medium, large, and jumbo. There's an easy migration path, so you can start with a small configuration and have this system grow with you throughout the life cycle of the product. And one thing that SeeTec does promote strong is that you are not financially disadvantaged at any stage, and you only pay for the difference between the various systems. So that avoids the need to guess the size at the start of the project and paying for something up front that is maybe a bit of an overkill that is not going to come into fruition until the second or third building may be put on a particular site, until the system expands. There may be a 200 or 300 camera system, but it's not going to be that initially. So you can start out small and then grow it and add the associated recording devices and the server configurations as it needs. So that's a plus from that side of things. In our small, medium, large and jumbo configurations, we have the S50, S100, Infinity and Infinity X. And as the titles would show you, that the first one's up to a 50 camera size system, jumping to 100 cameras over 2 servers, and the Infinity and Infinity X are unlimited in the number of the cameras and servers. The Infinity X, one of its main differentiating is that it has failover recording, and that could be a shared failover recording or a dedicated failover server that's in that particular system design. The brochure is available on the download, as we mentioned initially. That has the full list of all the features and what's included in each of the platforms, so you can actually see relatively easily and work out what system that you need for your deployment. The core basis of the system, as we look in the center ring, the Cayuga, its main basis is for linking HLIs and cameras and video encoders or whatever that may be. And that is based around standard hardware of a Windows environment. It is not proprietary in any way at all. And then the outer cores of what we've got here do show the options that you can put onto the actual system. If we look at the black ring, for example, the top right hand side, the interfaces with the clients. Now, there are a number of clients and how we access the system, whether it's a normal thick client locally installed, web, smartphone, and both with iOS and Android support. The analytics on the top left-hand side, the system supports both edge-based analytics and also server-based. It has a number of camera supports from the various manufacturers, and to the extent that they are basically an integration company, that it is software and hardware agnostic. So they try and open it up, and it is a platform that is not tied in at all to any particular camera technology. If we go down to the interfaces, they may cover a number of areas. The most common ones is probably access control and intruder systems. And SeeTec have developed a number of these that are off the shelf and available, and include the likes of Gallagher, TDSI, Linnell, and the available products within our own portfolio, being SPC and SciPass, are some of these as the examples. There's also audio integration, with intercom systems on a HI level with the likes of 2N and Commend, and it also has direct VoIP support integration, and that can be controlled from the client window, as we'll see later in the webinar. The bottom right is the part that relates to the BVI, which we're not going to cover in that here, but it is an integrated component and works seamlessly with the Cayuga VMS. Now, notwithstanding, while this can cater for a small system, it can also grow to be a large system by itself, but it's totally scalable, and it can go on larger platforms and integrate into PSIM environments. These PSIM type systems are normally seen in fields that we've dealt with in mining and correctional environments, where there's been a number of other different technologies and products, and they have these all under a central management scheme. Now, SeeTec have developed a number of PSIM interfaces, and there's a few of the main ones that they work with on a day-to-day type basis on the left-hand side. And again, we're just stressing that it's a hardware and software agnostic company, and if there are any other particular ones that come forward and are developed in the future, more than happy to look at these. So it is an open platform, so if somebody already has a PSIM, it will integrate very easily to that platform. But if we come back to the main basis of what the Cayuga VMS is for, when we said it, the integration on the day-to-day with our camera systems. Now, currently there are just under 4,000 devices that are supported natively within the platform, and this is from more than 60 manufacturers. So it is a fairly broad basis, and it goes back quite a few years, and we've yet to find any particular device that we haven't been able to integrate and have working 100% within the system. Saying that, as we know in technology, everything's evolving. Cameras come out on a fairly regular basis. And what they've done, they've designed a system with a smart driver. Now, these smart drivers have been implemented across a number of the manufacturers within the database. And what the smart driver does, so if you've got a particular brand X and that camera has only just been released, the smart driver will go out and interrogate the camera to see what features it has available to it, and will then bring that back and have those functions presented to the installer, so he can actually tailor make those. Worst case, okay, you've got an on-VIF profile less support, but the smart driver may give you more features, especially for a brand new camera until the next release of the codecs are coming up. The benefit of this is that you're not feeling that you're actually going to be locked out of a situation because, okay, a camera's come out and the customer likes these particular features that in there, and they won't be available until the next release of a particular codec in the VMS that's upcoming. So that's a very good sign, in terms of its integration. And the smart drivers work very, very well indeed. Now, the terminology, sometimes it's a little bit different with this particular platform based out of Germany, but notwithstanding that, we, on our monitor walls, which typically a videometric system, we have what we call a display agent. They can also be upgraded to the very large scales, with the IVIS and barcode systems that you might see in industrial, shopping centers, airports, where they've stitched a number of monitors together to form a particular pane. And again, that is supported on the Infinity X platform. Anyway, notwithstanding that, the display agent is available on all the systems from the S100 up. So if you've got a monitor wall, you want to deploy 1, 2, or 5 of these across the site, there is no restrictions at all in terms of licensing. It is included as a base standard feature, and you can put in as many as you want, as long as you have the required performance hardware for the graphics card and the PC controlling that. Again, these monitor walls, about which users are controlled by access rights, about if they can display cameras across a particular wall. And it is easy to change a standard client from a normal day-to-day monitoring into a short-term monitor wall if they want to be used after hours by the use of 2 mouse clicks, and then it can just be changed back again. So it's very versatile that you have a device that it can be used for just more than one purpose, and without a total reconfiguration of the system. Now, some of the other features, again, like I said before, the monitor walls from the S100 up, some of our high security features as well are included in the Cayuga platform. The privacy masking, but one of the other areas with the scrambling feature, which I'll show you a video in the next slide coming up, to user or the 4 eyes pass on requirements to log into particular functions, or even a general log on to the client require 2 users. And it also has passed a number of the European standards for certification, mainly within a lot of some of the financial institutions that are applicable. So it's been tested by a number of those and has come through very, very well. Now here, if we look at we'll see a car appear shortly. Now this is an archive view that has played back the players down the bottom, and we'll see the camera has got a pixelization of the car and masking of the street sign. Now this user is allowed to remove that particular, has the rights to do that, and then he plays it back so we can see the car with its number plate in view, and also the names of the street signs are now visible with the masking being removed. So I might just step back one and we'll see if we can just play that again for you, because you'll see, in the top left-hand corner, there's also a person, and while they are not in the main frame for viewing, that it still does pick up the pixelization on that person when they're walking and that as well. So it is fairly smart. And again, I want to stress, this is all controlled by user rights. So if they don't have the necessary rights, they will not be able to unmask that particular footage. This is not an add-on, an additional license at all. It is included from the S100, Infinity X, if you'd like to use it on 1 camera or 10 cameras. It's in the package. It's not an add-on option at all. Now, I did mention before, again, this is running in a standard Windows environment. It supports a number of the platforms. There will be covering in the next webinar in a couple of weeks the architecture, and we'll go into a bit more depth about the actual requirements for them. But in terms of Microsoft environments, it supports the latest Windows Server platforms, the latest desktop, Windows 10, Windows 7, all those are kept in there. So customers can take benefits from any existing relationships, whether their server platform might be Dell, Lenovo, HP, it doesn't matter. The storage platforms, they support whether it's a NAS direct attached, also virtualization, it will work in any infrastructure, and it's agnostic, and that it's an extremely flexible side of things. Now, at the heart of what the main user sees, is the client interface. It's the main part where the end user, the integrator, the installer, everybody interacts with this particular piece of software. There's only one piece of software required, whether it is on a server or on the workstation, for doing the configuring and looking back at footage, playing, etc. And again, it's all controlled by user rights. So if the user does not have access to program it, the configuration tools, which you'll see in the upcoming slide, will not be available to the user. It's an easy system to get hold of. Context-sensitive help is available at every step of the way by a single button. And little functions like it's like the glare-free night mode. So you can just click one mouse click, will then change the status of the screen. So it has not got the bright, if you've got a light colored background, it will dull that for the control room side of things. One of the parts which the with the client, how they set this up, it can be done in a number of ways. Now, this client, may look the same to the user, but how it's deployed, it can be a what they call a thick local client. It can be a web client via a browser, and you get a lot of the features, not all of them, but majority of the features just by that deployment. We also have another all-in-one client called the Anywhere client. Also, the viewer is done in this fashion as well. So you might have a situation where the user is not allowed to, can't be, due to the rights of their administrator, that they can't run software and that on the system, or somebody's had the footage that they need to look at, but that's the problem if they can't go and input the actual viewer. This particular piece of software, like, it's run off a USB key or a CD. It doesn't install any software actually on the machine, so it keeps it relatively clean. So they've thought of those side of things in instances, where you can still keep the protected viewer file rather than having it in just a standard AVI file for export. So that's a plus about how that's deployed across the network. Again, the interface, when you do sign on, you are presented with a couple of the icons, and we'll just go and look at a couple of those. On the left-hand side, you have 5 options. We constantly we call the mode bar, where the little 1 is on the top left. You have the surveillance tab, and that's the main window where you're going to drag and drop your maps and your cameras onto the screen for viewing. Your second selection down is your archive for replaying of recorded footage, exporting and bookmarking to it. Third icon's your reports on the system, whether you're looking at any of the alarms or the functions of the system. The fourth with the little spanners is the configuration. That was what I was mentioning before about setting it up, when the initial cameras are added to the system, the parameters, recording times, frame rates, etc. And again, that's probably not really an end user side of things. And the last one with the car is the license plate recognition, which is built into the system. And again, that's just accessed via an add-on for a license in the system. Moving along, we have the tab bar at the top. Now, at the instance, we see overview and parking lot. Now, these tab bars have different views. It may be a single view, it may have a 3x3, it could be a 4x4. Now, they are set up either on the fly or they can be kept centrally on the server. And then as they are dragged from the system tree, which we'll look at in a moment on the right-hand side, they display the various cameras on that screen, and it keeps that view up the top automatically. So that tab allows the flexibility that you can just click on any of the particular ones and go back to those views. Now, when they are not running, they are sitting there in the background, and the resources is very minimal. So it's not as if you're going to have, half a dozen different cameras, and effectively you could have, 2, 3, 4, 5 dozen cameras sitting there, and it's taking up a lot of resources, and it's making the system work hard. That's not the case, and they are just sitting there waiting. When they are brought to the front, that's when they become a bit more resourceful. Again, when you're finished with those, you can see there's an X beside the particular view, and just click that, and it just disappears, and it removes it from the tab bar. So it's just gone. It just takes it off there, and it's still available if you need to pull things in that back. The other part with the screens, like if you have a particular amount of cameras coming up there, each of the screens do have immediate access to the archive player, so you can actually pull up a mini archive player straight away and look at the last 5, 10, 60 minutes directly from this one screen. You do not have to change views. So with a simple 2 mouse clicks, you've actually got the player that you can actually rewind and look at that particular footage of that camera, and while you've still got the other cameras in a live view. Now, we have the system tree as we move along on the right-hand side. Now, depending on how your sites are configured, you may have just a single site, or this could be multi-sites where there's 5, 10, 20 sites and more. It's all kept in a hierarchical structure, and so you can just expand it on the plus, and then it'll just keep them on the particular organizational units, as you'll see as below. Once you pick a particular site and you expand that, in this case here, we've taken one from our own system. So you can see at the top where we've got our Alarm Corp Sydney, and then in the second pane, we've clicked on the cameras, and then it shows all the cameras in the lower field underneath. Now, this is exactly the same for the other devices in the system tree, whether it be alarms, maps, time management, or user profiles. Once you pick the particular one, they are then expanded in the lower half. You can just put a tick box in the bottom, and there's a little pencil down there which has the editing function where you can go and change the names or whatever the actual parameter and that is. And so it keeps it as clean as possible and minimizes the confusion. As you might see it, it's a bit small, but there's on the right-hand side, there's a little arrow and it's pointing to the right. So when you're finished with those side of things, you can click that and it just basically parks that map off to the side and it just frees it up. So you've got more space for your actual cameras and other areas on the desktop. Again, a simple function key press will make all the icons disappear and give you the maximum amount of space on the desktop with your view, and that's just a toggle mode. It'll toggle it back again. Again, down the bottom underneath the system tree, if you've got any PTZ cameras on the system, and again, they may be connected via old style analog encoders. If they're not IP, they can be brought into the system as well. The on-screen left, right, up, down focus, as well as presets, are all controlled from this particular point. Now, there may be the case that the site has an external joystick and a button control for those particular cameras. And while that will still work, you've actually got everything on the one screen and that here. And when that's actually highlighted on that particular camera, that then brings that particular function into view. So if you've got multiple IP cameras on there, it's just a matter of highlighting that screen, and then that function is in the black and illuminated. If it doesn't have the PTZ, it will not be illuminated. So it's an individual indication straight away as what you've got to work with that. So we've spoken about some of the things about Cayuga and where some of the applications and maybe some sites that are familiar to some people, if they're keen motor racing users. This was one that caught my eye when we knew about it, that they've got it installed in the Monaco Grand Prix, where there's fixed cameras that are down the pit lane, and then there's PTZ cameras all around the racetrack. And they cover basically every part of the course. So I thought that was quite impressive that they've actually chosen this for monitoring the Monaco Grand Prix. So that's quite impressive, what they've got there. Another one of their clients that they're quite proud of, is Rolex, with their manufacturing process. So when we got a site with 2,300 cameras in there, so it's obviously a fair size facilities, to cover with that amount of cameras. But it is more than capable of handling the larger style rollouts. This one's more one of the recent ones in Malaysia, in the KL, the Klang Valley Massive Rapid Transport System. There's approximately 6,500 cameras, and there's about 3,000 that are on the platform, and I think 3,500 on the trains. Now, the trains have a wireless network, and that's back to a central system. So all of them are seamlessly put under the one system. So there's 6,500 cameras on a single system, distributed across multiple servers. And the last one, which to talk about the show, Total in France, where they had a challenge to upgrade all the petrol stations, where we got 1,200 petrol stations, which is quite a few sites. And while they might not be a lot of cameras in each, but the time you do the numbers, it's a system that's got around 10,000 cameras. But it also has a number of other enhancements. While they might not be large, license plate recognition, point of sale integration, a central update and license management. Obviously things like that involving like drive-offs in the central station, be able to get a clear indication of the number plate, so they can try and report those to the police and even track down those particular side. Now, these systems, while they're all self-contained, they can all run in what we call island mode, should they lose their communication, and they're not online with the main system. And when it comes back online, it will then update themselves to the main, what they call the CSM, where all the database and that's kept. But I'll be covering that off in the architecture and the design area in the next webinar on the 6th of December. So we hope you can join us for that. So in summary, if you'd like to know some more about what we've just briefly touched on in that today, there are additional brochures and data sheets that you can find on our website. Then you can subscribe to our Alarm Corp Pulse newsletter, and that will contain information. Or you can register online to receive full access to our e-commerce platform, which includes pricing, and you can place orders. If you need to talk to one of the staff at Alarm Corp, in addition to myself, it's Jeff Rushton, is also in New South Wales, ACT in Queensland, and Chris Ireland in Victoria, South Australia, and WA. And their contact details and phone numbers are on the screen. In addition to that, there's a multitude of social media sites where you can follow us and like us and see the various updates that we have for our products on a regular basis. So please have a look at those. Here's the remaining webinars scheduled for the remainder of 2018. Jeff's got his final in the series next Wednesday related to SPC, and the following week I'll have the architecture side. We'll talk about Cayuga in relation to servers, clients, the recording platforms and how that's put together, and that will be then followed up with the additional features in relation to failover and redundancy on that side of things. So we'd like to thank you very much for your time today. We look forward to seeing you in the upcoming webinars, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us and contact us if you require or would like any further assistance or information that we've covered today. So thank you very much for your time. Goodbye.